came out right-handed. He didn't come out southpaw. He came out right-handed. It stood straight up. That first round was a deciding factor. This thing worked. And also, I didn't know what I had left, so I'm like this. I'm nervous. And then I pop. It still worked.
He entered the ring with his right hand dominant. He didn't come out southpaw. Instead, he was poised, upright, ready. That opening round set the entire stage. The plan, the technique, the instinct, it all fell into place seamlessly, even though a flicker of uncertainty crossed his mind. Because he wasn't entirely sure how much he still had left in his arsenal, he executed it perfectly. That moment of hesitation, that tension, quickly gave way to clarity and action. He struck, and it worked. When Sugar Ray Leonard stepped into the spotlight against Marvin Hagler in 1987, he was carrying more than his gloves and a reputation. He was carrying a secret so unexpected that it would later shock the world of boxing to its core. To most fans and experts, the idea that Leonard could challenge a ferocious, unrelenting middleweight champion seemed preposterous. Hagler had dominated his division, and the odds were stacked overwhelmingly against the charismatic Leonard. Yet, from the moment the bell rang, everything they thought they knew about that fight would be proven wrong. Leonard possessed knowledge that few, if any, could have anticipated. An insight into Hagler's style, his weaknesses, and most importantly, a meticulously crafted plan that would change the course of boxing history forever. The unfolding of that night, the hidden strategy, and Leonard's later revelation about his mindset and preparation, summed up in his haunting phrase, "I'll never forget," will become the stuff of legend. This is more than just a story about a fight. It is a story of one man confronting his deepest fears, his darkest moments, and the personal demons that threaten to define him. Against the backdrop of fame, wealth, and athletic achievement, Leonard's journey reminds us that true triumph often comes not from brute strength alone, but from intellect, courage, and strategy meticulously honed in the shadows before the world ever sees it. In the story that follows, we will trace the twists and turns of Leonard's career, the setbacks, the comebacks, and the moments of vulnerability he never shared with the public. You will witness how an injury that could have ended everything, a period of addiction, and paralyzing self-doubt became the crucible from which one of the greatest strategies in boxing history emerged. By the time Leonard faced Hagler, he had transformed fear into preparation, doubt into insight, and hesitation into a calculated plan. What happened in that ring was a result of more than physical training. It was a culmination of psychological warfare, patient observation, and a deep understanding of both his opponent and himself. Every punch, every feint, every movement was premeditated, executed with precision, and fueled by years of experience, insight, and self-reflection. This tale of courage, intellect, and perseverance is a testament not only to Leonard's talent as a fighter, but also to his genius as a strategist. It challenges a notion that sports are won purely through physical dominance and reveals the unseen layers of preparation, thought, and willpower that define true champions. As we journey through this story, from the early days that almost never were, to the darkest periods that nearly broke him, to the psychological chess game that played out in front of the world, you'll gain insight into how Sugar Ray Leonard turned what seemed like impossible odds into one of the most iconic victories in sports history. In the early 1980s, the boxing world was alive with anticipation. Fans, promoters, and journalists alike were buzzing about a potential showdown between two of the era's most electrifying fighters, Marvin Hagler, the relentless middleweight champion, and Sugar Ray Leonard, the dazzling speedster who had taken the boxing world by storm. On paper, it seemed like a dream match destined to happen. Hagler, the undisputed king of the middleweight division, had established a fearsome reputation by annihilating opponents with his raw power and relentless aggression. Fighters like Vito Antuofermo and Mustafa Hamsho had fallen before him, victims of his devastating strength and unparalleled determination inside the ring. Meanwhile, Sugar Ray Leonard was carving out his own legend. He had risen rapidly, defeating Ayub Kalul and then famously dismantling Thomas Hearns in a battle that remains etched in boxing history. Leonard's combination of speed, tactical intelligence, and charisma captured the imagination of fans everywhere. People didn't just admire him, they were captivated by him. They wanted to see him face every challenge, and none more than the formidable Marvin Hagler. The anticipation of this matchup wasn't just about two fighters clashing. It was a cultural moment, a spectacle that promised fireworks and history-making drama. Yet, as is often the case with great stories, fate intervened. In 1981, everything seemed poised for this epic confrontation, but the timeline shifted unexpectedly. Leonard was at the height of his career, a star adored by fans and feared by opponents. After a series of victories, including his dominance showing over Hearns, the public expected him to step up and face Hagler. The crowd, promoters, and even Hagler himself assumed the announcement would come at any moment. And then, disaster struck, not in the ring, but in training. In 1982, during preparations for a routine title defense against Bruce Finch, Leonard suffered a detached retina, a serious eye injury that posed a dual threat: the potential end of his career and a permanent risk to his vision. Surgeries were performed. Doctors worked tirelessly, and immediate danger passed. But the psychological impact was immense. Suddenly, the fighter who had seemed invincible was confronted with a vulnerability that shook him to his core. Later that year, in a special ceremony in Baltimore, Leonard faced Hagler in a moment that would become legendary for reasons no one anticipated. With all eyes on him, the crowd brimming with excitement for the fight they believed was imminent, Leonard made an announcement that stunned everyone. Instead of confirming the long-anticipated bout with Hagler, he declared that while a match with the great champion would be historic, it simply would not happen at that time. The disappointment in Hagler's corner and the shock of the audience were palpable. Promoters and Hagler's managers, Pat and Goody Petronelli, had been counting on that mega fight, expecting it to be a defining payday and a monumental clash of skill and power. Instead, the moment passed, and the opportunity seemed lost. But what many didn't realize at the time was that Leonard's decision planted a seed of tension, a personal rivalry that would fester and grow over the years. Hagler never forgave Leonard for the Baltimore event, and Leonard later admitted that the conflict was no longer just about titles or money. It had become deeply personal. What started as an apparent missed opportunity became the foundation for one of boxing's most intense rivalries. By the mid-1980s, Leonard's name had become synonymous with brilliance and unpredictability. Even after stepping away from the sport, the idea of a potential Hagler matchup lingered like a shadow over every fan and fighter alike. Leonard's absence from the ring only heightened the anticipation. When he eventually announced his comeback less than 2 years after his initial retirement, it sent shockwaves through the boxing community. This return wasn't casual. It was deliberate, calculated, and purposeful. Leonard made it clear that he intended to eventually face Marvin Hagler, a revelation that reignited the hopes and imaginations of fans around the globe. However, the path was far from straightforward. Leonard's eye issues returned, creating doubt and tension around his physical readiness. He faced tough opponents like Kevin Howard as part of his comeback, and even experienced a shocking knockdown for the first time in his career. Through all of this, Leonard confronted the fear and self-doubt that had plagued him, realizing that his battles weren't just physical. They were deeply psychological. This period, fraught with injury, tension, and uncertainty, set the stage for Leonard's ultimate challenge. It wasn't merely a fight waiting in the future. It was a culmination of years of preparation, reflection, and personal struggle. The beginning that almost never would become the foundation upon which one of the greatest comebacks in sports history would be built. While the public imagined Leonard's life as one of glamour, triumph, and unbroken confidence, the reality was far darker. Behind the bright lights of arenas and the roar of cheering fans, Leonard faced battles that were entirely invisible to the outside world. His career, marked by dazzling victories and strategic brilliance, was shadowed by personal struggles that would test not just his body, but his mind and spirit. During Leonard's retirement, Marvin Hagler continued his ascent, dominating the middleweight division with ferocity few could match. His legendary clash against Thomas Hearns, famously dubbed the War, showcased Hagler's incredible power, endurance, and tactical skill. The opening round alone left fans breathless, a spectacle of relentless punches and ferocious exchanges. Hagler's victory in the third round solidified him as the preeminent middleweight of the era. As Hagler reached new heights of fame and dominance, Leonard was grappling with a life far removed from the ring's glory. For Leonard, the period away from boxing became a crucible of frustration and temptation. Despite outward appearances, he admitted later that he was angry, unhappy, and struggling with the pressures of maintaining his public image while wrestling with private demons. He sought outlets to cope, But many of these outlets were destructive. During this dark chapter, Leonard encountered individuals who introduced him to cocaine and alcohol. The allure of these substances offered temporary escape, but came with long-term consequences. He later confessed that this part of his life remained a hidden truth for decades. While fans assumed his absence was due to injury or strategic planning, the reality was far more complex. Leonard was fighting internal battles that threatened to consume him. The danger of this period was not just physical, but emotional. Friends and family, deeply aware of Leonard's potential to spiral, feared for his health and career. They had witnessed Hagler's devastating dominance in the ring, and their concern intensified as Leonard battled addiction and self-doubt in secret. The once proud champion was now entangled in habits that could have ended everything he had worked so hard to achieve. Even as Leonard faced these challenges, Hagler continued to shine. In March 1986, Hagler defended his middleweight title against John the Beast Mugabe, a fierce competitor. Their fight was brutal, exciting, and emblematic of Hagler's relentless style, ending in an 11th round stoppage. Leonard later admitted that witnessing Hagler's struggle against Mugabe, combined with his own personal reflections, catalyzed a transformation. The alcohol, the fear, the sense of being overwhelmed. These began to give way to clarity and purpose. The seed of an idea, a daring plan, was planted. He realized that success against Hagler would not be about brute force. It would require strategy, observation, and psychological mastery. The fight wasn't just physical. It would be a battle of intellect, patience, and precise execution. This period of darkness, far from being wasted, became a critical turning point. Leonard confronted addiction, fear, and doubt, emerging not merely as a stronger athlete, but as a wiser strategist. He cleaned up his life, refocused on training, and honed a mental approach that would be pivotal in his eventual showdown with Hagler. The lessons learned during these struggles, resilience, patience, and psychological insight, would shape the approach that allowed him to take control of the fight, even when facing one of the most physically dominant champions in history. The dark times nobody knew about were not a detour. They were the crucible in which Leonard's ultimate strategy and mindset were forged. While fans remember the highlights and victories, the truth was far more compelling. Leonard had confronted the abyss of personal failure, addiction, and fear, and emerged with the insight and courage necessary to attempt what no one believed possible. After witnessing Marvin Hagler's struggle against John the Beast Mugabe, Leonard's mind ignited with a realization few could comprehend. For years, the boxing world had seen Hagler as invincible, an unstoppable force whose aggressive style and raw power had crushed nearly every challenger. Yet, in that fight, Leonard noticed subtle cracks in Hagler's armor. Hesitations, moments of overcommitment, and openings that a fighter with speed, intelligence, and strategy could exploit. For Leonard, the possibilities were electrifying. He could see a path that others could not. The impossible was suddenly imaginable. Fueled by this revelation, Leonard took a decisive step that would shock both his supporters and detractors. He picked up the phone and called his manager, Mike Trainer. It was not a casual conversation. It was a declaration that would shake the foundations of the boxing world. Leonard explained that he wanted to face Marvin Hagler. The initial reaction from Trainer was immediate, filled with concern and skepticism. "Are you drinking?" his manager asked, fearing that Leonard's judgment was compromised by alcohol. Leonard did not deny it. He admitted that he had been drinking, but he reassured Trainer that this was not a reckless whim. He was serious. This call was more than just a statement of intent. It was a psychological pivot, a declaration of readiness that blended daring with meticulous calculation. Leonard's vision of the fight was not fueled by bravado. It was grounded in careful observation, self-reflection, and an intimate understanding of both his strengths and Hagler's vulnerabilities. He had seen the openings, the subtle weaknesses, and the moments where Hagler's natural style could be countered. This was not luck. It was strategy in its purest form. But Leonard's insight went beyond physical observation. He recognized that fear, which had driven him to retire twice and wrestle with doubt, could now be harnessed as a motivational force. Fear was no longer paralyzing. It became a tool, pushing him to prepare harder, think smarter, and anticipate every possible scenario. He knew that the fight would be won in the mind long before the first bell rang. Leonard's courage was not the absence of fear. It was mastery over it. The decision to challenge Hagler also required confronting his own recent history. Leonard had faced personal struggles, retirement, injury, addiction, and self-doubt, and all these experiences shaped the fighter he was becoming. He understood that stepping into the ring against Hagler meant not only facing one of the greatest physical threats in the sport, but also confronting the ghosts of his own fears and insecurities. Yet, rather than weaken him, these challenges had refined his focus. Leonard's plan would rely not merely on his physical abilities, but on psychological preparation, timing, and controlled execution. Even the boxing community was unaware of the depth of Leonard's preparation. The announcement of the fight created a media frenzy, with Hagler opening as a 4-1 favorite. Most experts believed Leonard had no chance. He was considered an underdog in the truest sense. Yet Leonard had already begun a mental campaign, setting the stage for his victory long before stepping into the ring. He made unconventional decisions, giving up a larger purse to choose the gloves, the number of rounds, and even the ring size. These were not trivial concessions. They were calculated moves designed to maximize his speed, leverage his endurance, and reduce Hagler's punching power. Leonard's decisions were a masterclass in psychological and strategic preparation. In essence, the phone call to trainer marked a point where Leonard transformed from a fighter seeking redemption into a strategist orchestrating one of the greatest upsets in boxing history. He had turned observation, insight, and careful planning into a roadmap that would guide him to one of the most dangerous fights of his career. Fear, doubt, and past struggles were no longer obstacles. They were the foundation for his mental edge. This was the moment when everything changed. The boxing world saw only a bold announcement. Leonard, however, had already begun playing a deeper game, a game that would unfold over the coming months in preparation for a battle that would test every ounce of his skill, intelligence, and courage. The seemingly simple phone call was, in reality, a seismic step toward rewriting boxing history. As the announcement of the fight between Sugar Ray Leonard and Marvin Hagler rippled through the boxing world, the public saw it as a clash of titans. Speed against power, finesse against aggression. But behind the scenes, Leonard was orchestrating a psychological battle that few could even imagine. While fans focused on punches, rounds, and odds, Leonard was playing chess inside the minds of both his opponent and the audience. Leonard understood something fundamental about boxing at the highest level. The battle begins long before the bell rings. A fighter's confidence, focus, and mental state can determine the outcome as much as speed, stamina, or strength. Leonard had studied Hagler for years. He knew Hagler's signature style, his relentless pressure, punishing punches, and powerful southpaw stance. But he also recognized that Hagler, like any fighter, could be influenced by subtle psychological maneuvers. Leonard was determined to plant seeds of doubt while simultaneously bolstering his own confidence. One of Leonard's first strategies was to control the narrative publicly. Unlike some fighters who trash-talk their opponents, Leonard spoke with respect about Hagler. In interviews, he praised the champion's skill and power, emphasizing Hagler's strengths. To an outsider, it seemed like Leonard was being deferential, even cautious. In reality, he was executing a precise, psychological tactic. By highlighting Hagler's abilities, Leonard encouraged the champion to focus on outboxing him, a strategy that would disrupt Hagler's natural aggressive style. The mind games had begun, and Hagler had unknowingly fallen into the trap. At one of the pre-fight press conferences, Leonard carefully observed Hagler's behavior. He listened intently as Hagler made confident declarations about his ability to outbox Leonard. That was the exact moment Leonard had been waiting for. By expressing a desire to adapt his style, Hagler revealed a crack in his mindset, a willingness to depart from what had made him dominant. Leonard later admitted that this psychological shift was crucial. Hagler's own words showed that he was thinking about strategies that were unnatural for him, and Leonard was ready to exploit this deviation. Beyond influencing Hagler, Leonard also focused on his own mental preparation. He understood that physical training alone was not enough. A fighter's confidence must be fortified, his strategy internalized, and his composure unshakable. Leonard spent over a year training specifically for this fight, meticulously conditioning his body, while refining his approach to counter Hagler's power. He cut back on drugs and alcohol, emerging from his past struggles with a renewed focus and clarity. For Leonard, this fight was about more than winning a title. It was about proving to himself that he had conquered his personal demons and could triumph over one of boxing's most feared champions. Leonard also devised subtle strategies for in-ring execution. He instructed his corner to notify him when there were 30 seconds remaining in each round, a seemingly minor detail. Yet these cues were part of a calculated plan. The last 30 seconds of a round often leave a strong impression on judges. Leonard used this time to unleash a flurry of combinations, gaining points and controlling the rhythm of the fight. Every detail, from the size of the ring to the number of rounds, was carefully chosen to maximize his strengths while minimizing Hagler's advantages. The psychological preparation was just as intense as the physical. Leonard knew the fight would demand mental resilience as much as skill. Fear, doubt, and past setbacks were transformed into motivation, fueling his focus and sharpening his instincts. By the time he stepped into the ring, Leonard had created not just a plan for victory, but a blueprint for controlling the mental battlefield. He had studied, anticipated, and manipulated the environment to tilt the odds in his favor. This phase of preparation highlights Leonard's genius beyond mere athleticism. While Hagler relied on power and aggression, Leonard relied on strategy, psychology, and anticipation. He understood that boxing was as much about outthinking an opponent as overpowering them. In doing so, Leonard elevated the sport, demonstrating that victories could be achieved through intellect and preparation as much as physical prowess. By the time the fight night approached, Leonard had already won the psychological war in ways most observers could not perceive. The mental chessboard was set, the traps were in place, and Hagler, unknowingly, had walked right into the opening Leonard had meticulously crafted. The stage was ready, and the world would soon witness the culmination of years of planning, struggle, and strategy. And that's the incredible story of how Sugar Ray Leonard overcame fear, doubt, and one of boxing's most feared champions to pull off an unforgettable victory. His journey wasn't just about skill in the ring. It was about strategy, preparation, and the courage to face personal challenges head-on. If you enjoyed this deep dive into one of boxing's greatest moments, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you never miss a story like this. Share your thoughts in the comments. What part of Leonard's journey inspired you the most? Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next video where we uncover more untold stories from the world of sports and beyond.